I used to think that loyalty was everything, that when two people make a promise, especially a promise like marriage, it meant forever. I believed in it. I believed in her, in Lisa. You spend years building something together, trusting that person completely. You never think, that won't happen to us. I always thought I was one of the lucky ones. Lisa and I, we had it all. Or at least I thought we did. She was the one, my partner, the person I imagined growing old with. We talked about our future together, how things would be when we retired, the trips we'd take, the simple life we'd have. There wasn't a single doubt in my mind that this was forever. I never even questioned it. Sure, I had fears, like anyone else. I mean, who doesn't wonder sometimes? But I always pushed those thoughts aside. Lisa would never do that. She wasn't that kind of person. We had something special, something real. So whenever those little doubts crept in, when she worked late, when she seemed distant, I brushed them off. That's just life, right? People get busy, they get tired, it's normal. And I wasn't asking for much, really. Just the basics. Love, loyalty, a good life together. I thought that was enough. That was the dream. Happiness until the end. But looking back now, it's clear how easy it was to believe in that bubble, to trust so blindly. And it's funny because, when you're in it, you never even consider that it might pop. It all started with something I never saw coming. I was outside just minding my own business, and my neighbor, Tom, pulled me aside. He had this look on his face, serious, almost uncomfortable. "David," he said, "I hate to be the one to tell you this, but I've seen Lisa with someone else." I remember just staring at him, not really processing it. My first instinct was to laugh it off. "Come on, Tom, you've got the wrong idea," I said. "Lisa would never do something like that." But he looked at me, dead serious. "I know what I saw," he said, and then he just walked away, leaving me standing there, confused. I didn't believe him. I couldn't. This was Lisa we were talking about, my wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone. But the thing is, once someone plants that seed of doubt, it's hard to shake. Even though I wanted to brush it off, the thought kept gnawing at the back of my mind. And then I started noticing things. Little things, at first. She was on her phone more, always stepping outside to take calls. She started coming home later from work, saying she had meetings, but something about it didn't feel right. I'd ask her how her day was, and she'd give me these vague answers, like she didn't want to talk about it. Still, I told myself I was being paranoid, that Tom had just misunderstood something. Lisa was loyal. She loved me. I'd been with her for years, and nothing like this had ever happened. But then, those little doubts, those tiny cracks in the surface, started getting bigger. I'd catch her smiling at her phone, and when I'd ask what was so funny, she'd brush it off, saying it was just a friend from work. But it didn't sit right with me. I started questioning things I never would have before. Who is she talking to? Why is she acting different? But even then, I didn't want to believe it. How could I? This was my wife, the woman I trusted with my whole life. So I kept telling myself it was nothing, that I was overthinking it. But deep down, something had changed. That seed of doubt had taken root, and no matter how much I tried to ignore it, it was there, growing. And that's when I realized I needed to know the truth. You know that feeling when your mind won't shut off? When every thought, every doubt just keeps spinning around, and no matter how hard you try, you can't shake it? That's where I was. I couldn't stop thinking about it. The little things Lisa had been doing, the strange behavior, it was all starting to add up. But even then, I didn't want to believe it. Part of me thought, David, you're losing it. You're being paranoid. This is Lisa. She wouldn't cheat on you. You've been together for years. This isn't happening." But the other part of me, the part that was growing louder by the day, kept saying, "What if? What if Tom was right? What if she's lying?" It was like a war inside my head. One side fighting to hold on to the love and trust I'd always had, and the other side, well, it just couldn't ignore the signs anymore. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I decided to find out for myself. I needed proof, real proof. I couldn't just confront her with my suspicions. It had to be more than that. I needed to see it with my own eyes. That's when I came up with the idea to set up a camera. I know it sounds crazy, and believe me, I felt terrible even thinking about it. But I had to know. I had to know if everything I believed in was a lie or if I was just losing my mind. I found a small, hidden camera online. Something discreet that I could place in the house where Lisa wouldn't notice. And as I set it up, my hands were shaking. I felt like I was crossing a line, like I was betraying her trust just by doing it. But then again, if she was already betraying me, didn't I have the right to know? That's what I kept telling myself. After I set it up, I waited. I tried to act normal, tried to keep everything together, but inside, I was a mess. Every time she left the house, every time she got on her phone, I found myself thinking, is this it? Is this when I'll find out the truth? But the waiting, the not knowing, that was the worst part. It was like living in limbo, stuck between two realities, one where everything was fine and one where everything was about to fall apart. I wanted to believe in her. I wanted to trust that she was the woman I thought she was. But that doubt, it kept growing. It was like I was drowning in it, and the only way out was to find the truth, no matter how much it hurt. So I waited, and all I could do was hope. Hope that I was wrong, but deep down, I knew I wasn't. It didn't take long. A few days later, I had the footage. I remember sitting there, staring at the screen, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to press play. I didn't want to see what I was about to see, but at the same time, I had to. I had to know for sure. So, I pressed play. At first, it was just the house, empty, quiet. And for a moment, I almost felt relief. Maybe nothing happened. Maybe I was wrong. But then, there they were, Lisa and him. I couldn't breathe. It was like the air had been sucked out of the room. I watched as they walked in, laughing, talking like they didn't have a care in the world. And then, they kissed. I felt sick. My stomach turned, my hands started shaking, and all I could think was, this can't be real. This can't be happening. But it was, right there in front of me. The truth I had been dreading. Everything I had feared, everything I didn't want to believe. It was real. They moved around the house like they owned the place, like it was their home, not ours. I watched as they sat together, close, too close. I saw the way she looked at him, the way she used to look at me. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't just a one-time thing. This was real. This had been going on for who knows how long, right under my nose. And then, the worst part. They went upstairs. I didn't want to see it, but I couldn't turn away. I had to know. I had to see everything. So I kept watching. And when I saw them together, when I saw them in my bed, that was it. My whole world collapsed. I can't even describe the pain. It was like everything inside me shattered all at once. The love, the trust, the memories. It was all gone in an instant. I felt like a fool, like I'd been living a lie for months. maybe even years. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had given my life to, wasn't who I thought she was. I remember just sitting there, staring at the screen, frozen. I couldn't move, couldn't think. All I could do was replay it over and over in my head, each time feeling the knife twist a little deeper. My trust was broken, and with it, everything I had built with Lisa, the life we had, the future I imagined, it was all gone. And in its place was this emptiness, this hollow feeling that I didn't know how to fill. The loop of suspicion had closed, but what was left in its wake was far worse than I could have ever imagined. After watching that footage, after seeing everything, I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt worthless. It wasn't just about what Lisa had done, it was about me, about who I was, or more accurately, who I wasn't. I started asking myself questions I'd never asked before. What did I do wrong? Was I not enough for her? Did I fail as a husband? Was it something I said? Something I didn't do? I couldn't stop thinking about all the ways I must have fallen short. And with every question, I felt myself sinking deeper into this pit of self-doubt. I mean, how do you process something like this? How do you watch the person you love, the person you trusted more than anyone, betray you like that and not wonder what you did wrong? I couldn't help but think that it was my fault, that maybe I wasn't good enough, that I didn't provide her with the life she wanted. I'd always struggled with money, with success. Maybe that's why she found someone else, someone better. And the thing is, it wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything. It was about me never feeling like I measured up. I'd always tried to be the best husband I could be, but maybe it wasn't enough. Maybe I wasn't enough. You start picking apart every moment, every argument, every little detail of your life together, trying to find where it all went wrong. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't figure it out. And that's what hurt the most. I couldn't pinpoint where I failed, but I was convinced that I had. It wasn't just my heart that was broken, it was my self-worth. The betrayal hit me on a level I didn't even know existed. I felt inadequate, like I wasn't worth loyalty, like I didn't deserve it. And that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just make you question the other person, it makes you question yourself. I'd always thought of myself as a good husband, as someone who did their best. But now, I didn't know. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know if I was capable of being loved or if I'd ever be able to trust someone again. The heartbreak wasn't just about losing Lisa, it was about losing the version of myself I thought I knew. I knew I couldn't avoid it any longer. After seeing what I saw, after knowing the truth, I had to confront her. There was no more hiding, no more pretending. I needed answers, even if I didn't want to hear them. She came home that night, just like any other night, acting like everything was normal. But to me, nothing was normal anymore. I was barely holding it together. I could feel the anger rising in me, the pain just sitting there, waiting to explode. I waited until she sat down. And then I just said it. I know, Lisa. I know about the affair. Her face, I'll never forget the look on her face. It was like she didn't know how to react. Shock, guilt, maybe even fear. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me like she was trying to figure out how much I knew. And then finally, she spoke, her voice shaking. David, I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't mean for this to happen. Those words, they cut deeper than anything else. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just stood there, staring at her, feeling this mix of rage and devastation. You didn't mean for this to happen? I repeated, my voice shaking. You brought him into our home, Lisa. Our home. The place where we built our life together. How could you do this? She tried to explain. She said it was a mistake, that she didn't know why she did it, that she never wanted to hurt me. But none of it made sense. None of it mattered. The damage was done. Every word she said felt like an excuse, like she was just trying to justify something that couldn't be justified. I asked her the question that had been burning inside me since the moment I saw that footage. Why? Why him? Why now? Was I not enough for you? She looked away, her eyes filling with tears. It wasn't about you, she whispered. I don't know, I was lost. I made a mistake. I didn't know what to feel anymore. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to lash out, to make her feel the same pain I was feeling. But another part of me was just numb. I didn't even recognize her anymore. The woman standing in front of me wasn't the Lisa I knew. Or maybe I never really knew her at all. We went back and forth for what felt like hours, but in the end, nothing she said could undo what had happened. Nothing could take away the betrayal, the hurt, the shattered trust. I asked her if she loved him. She said no. I asked her if she wanted to leave me. She said no. But even as she said the words, I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. The trust we had, it was gone. And with it, everything we had built together. By the end of the conversation, I wasn't even sure what I was feeling. I was angry, I was hurt, but most of all, I was lost. I didn't know what to do next. All I knew was that nothing would ever be the same again. After everything that happened, I felt like I was drowning. I didn't know what to do, where to turn. I couldn't make sense of it on my own. So I did what anyone would do. I reached out to the people closest to me. First, I called Mike, my best friend. We've known each other for years, and I trusted him to give it to me straight, and he did. David, you can't stay with someone who did this to you, he said. You deserve better than that. Mike didn't hold back. He was angry for me, telling me I should walk away, start fresh. His words hit hard, but they didn't make the decision any easier. Part of me agreed with him, but part of me still didn't know if I could just throw everything away. Then I talked to my sister, Emily. She was more measured. People make mistakes, she told me. Maybe there's a way to work through this if you still love her. She reminded me of the good times Lisa and I had shared, how much we'd built together, and how it wasn't easy to just erase all of that. Her words made me pause. Maybe there was a chance to fix things. But could I ever trust Lisa again? I didn't know. And then there were my parents. My mum, she was heartbroken for me. We're here for you. Whatever you decide, she said, her voice soft. But you need to do what's right for you. Don't make this decision for anyone else. My dad, on the other hand, was quiet. He listened, but he didn't say much. He's always been like that. Supportive, but letting me find my own way. The advice I got was all over the place. Some telling me to leave, some telling me to stay and try to work it out. But no matter what anyone said, I realized that none of them could make the decision for me. This was my life, my marriage, and ultimately, my choice. It didn't matter how much support I had, or how many people I talked to. The weight of the decision was still mine to carry. After days, maybe weeks, of being lost in my own head, I realized something. I couldn't stay in that dark place forever. I couldn't keep replaying what happened, couldn't keep torturing myself with the what-ifs. I had to start picking up the pieces, no matter how broken I felt. So, I made a decision. I chose to focus on myself, on healing. The first step was therapy. I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, sitting in a room, talking to someone who didn't know me, didn't know my life. but I was desperate to find some sense of clarity. So I went. And it wasn't a miracle fix, but it helped. Just talking to someone who wasn't emotionally involved, who could help me unpack all of the mess in my head, it made a difference. Therapy didn't give me all the answers, but it helped me see things differently. Helped me realize that the affair wasn't about my worth. It wasn't about me being not enough. It was about her choices. And more than that, it was about taking control of my own life again, about not letting this define me. I started focusing on things I'd neglected: my health, my well-being. I went for runs, started eating better, started taking care of myself in ways I hadn't in a long time. And slowly, I began to feel a little more like myself again. It wasn't an instant change. It wasn't like one day I woke up and everything was fine. No, it was gradual. Some days, I still felt that weight of betrayal pressing down on me. But other days, I felt lighter, stronger. I started remembering the things I enjoyed, the parts of me that weren't tied to my relationship with Lisa. And I realized that healing wasn't about getting over it. It was about learning to live with it, learning to accept what happened and still find peace within myself. I was far from fully healed, but for the first time since everything had happened, I felt like I was moving forward, like I wasn't stuck in that place of pain anymore. I was reclaiming my life, bit by bit. I wasn't looking for anything. After everything that had happened with Lisa, the last thing on my mind was starting over or getting into another relationship. But life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Her name was Sarah. We met through a mutual friend. Just a casual gathering, nothing planned. I wasn't expecting much, just polite conversation, small talk. But there was something about her. She was different. Not in a flashy, obvious way, but in the way she listened, the way she didn't push or pry. She just was there. We exchanged numbers, but even then, I wasn't sure what I was doing. I wasn't ready for anything serious. Hell, I wasn't even sure if I was ready to trust anyone again. But we started talking just casually at first. Texts, the occasional call, and before I knew it, we were spending more time together. Grabbing coffee, going for walks. It was easy, comfortable, but even as I started to open up to her, that fear was still there, that voice in the back of my head, reminding me of what had happened before. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for something to go wrong. I was cautious, probably more cautious than I needed to be. But after everything with Lisa, I didn't know how to let my guard down completely. And the thing is, Sarah understood. She wasn't in a rush, wasn't trying to push me into anything. She was patient. She listened. She gave me the space I needed to heal in my own time, and that made all the difference. Slowly, I started to trust again. It wasn't easy, and I wasn't fully there yet. I still had my doubts, still had that fear of being hurt again. But with Sarah, it felt different. I wasn't jumping into anything head first. I was taking my time, rebuilding trust little by little at my own pace. And that's when I realized that maybe I could love again. Maybe there was a future for me that didn't involve carrying the weight of my past. Sarah didn't fix me, and she didn't erase the pain of what happened with Lisa. But she showed me that moving forward was possible, that there was life and maybe even love beyond the betrayal. When I look back on everything that's happened, it feels like a different life. The person I was before all of this, the person who trusted blindly, who thought life was set in stone, he's gone. But in his place, I found something new, something stronger. It took time, more time than I expected, to reach this point. After everything with Lisa, I didn't think I'd ever be able to trust again. I didn't think happiness, real happiness, was even possible for me. But meeting Sarah and taking things slowly, it changed my perspective. It wasn't about forgetting what happened. It wasn't about pretending that the betrayal never took place. It was about accepting it. Accepting that I went through something painful, something that changed me. And yet, here I am, still standing, still able to love, still able to trust, even if it's just a little at a time. Sarah isn't a replacement for what I lost. She's not the happy ending that fixes everything, but she's part of this new chapter in my life, a chapter I never thought I'd have. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm ready to turn the page. I've learned that healing doesn't mean erasing the past. It means finding a way to live with it, to grow from it. It means realizing that life goes on, even when it feels like it won't. And maybe, just maybe, happiness and trust can be rebuilt, even after they've been shattered. I don't know what the future holds with Sarah, and that's okay. What matters is that I'm moving forward, that I've let go of the weight of what happened, and that I'm ready for whatever comes next. And that feels like happiness.